Thank you for tuning into the live show. It is your boy Genesis. It is currently 2:34 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 18th of May 2025. How are you doing? Yes, we are back for another episode real fast. How is your weekend going? Today for me was a beautiful day. Well, yesterday was a beautiful day. I mm, I had a shoot. As some of you know, I shoot videos. I'm a filmmaker. I actually went to school for filmmaking, so I shoot music videos. I shoot uh, campaigns for brands who are trying to get to more audience, uh, social media posts. But most importantly, I do videos, okay? I actually went to school for filmmaking. And if some people are wondering, what school did he go to? I actually attended New York Film Academy. Um, yeah. So yeah, that's what I did today. It was a long shoot, but it was a beautiful experience because you get to do what you love and create something remarkable. But with that being said, enough of me. Let's get to business. Okay, let's get to business. What in the world is going on with James Comey? Why did he post 8647? Of course, we spoke about this yesterday, and we knew the Secret Service were going to definitely interrogate him and figure out what in the world are you doing. CNN has update on him right here. We're going to check it out real fast. And then we're going to see what the OG, the 45th, and now the 47th is considering for Vladimir Putin. Okay, here we go.
Stupid post. Are they really going to try to throw him in jail over it?
No, I don't think he's going to jail. But let me ask you, if Tony Soprano said so-and-so is going to get whacked, does that mean that they're out of whack? Does it mean that they're going to get weed whacked? No, it means that they're going to get killed, right? In this context,
well, James Comey didn't say Donald Trump is going to get.
No,
86.
he posted.
He didn't say that
He said
either.
He posted 8647, right? 86 in this sense is a verb. 8647, right? This is something that the New York Times, the BBC, all acknowledge that could mean, in context, to kill someone. So yeah, I after two assassination attempts, the congressional shooting, the left lighting Teslas on fires, you have leftists barring Jews from entering campuses. Yeah, I think this is okay to investigate. I think it's fine to investigate. I don't think anything will happen from it because maybe there's no evidence. Maybe you could take him at his word. But this is definitely something that has been used and should be investigated.
Well, just ask Jack Posobiec, who wrote back in 2022, 8646. He also said that Comey should be arrested for this. Matt Gaetz says back in 2024, we've now 86th McCarthy, McDaniel, McConnell.
Well, I think he should
throw him in jail.
He should be questioned. He should undoubtedly be questioned. You know, every time Donald Trump uses the word fight, people lose their minds. And here you have a post, and we're supposed to believe he was just sharing the numbers of the day on Sesame Street. There's a meaning behind it, and he knows that there's at least a political meaning. He admitted that. I know he admitted that. But he also is smart enough to know that before he shares that, he should probably fully vet it to understand the full meaning behind it. I will say, though, I do want to say, I didn't know what it meant until a couple of weeks ago. I was leaving a restaurant. The person parked next to me had a sign next to their little baby on board decal. They had a sign that said 8647. And I was like, what in the world? Is this their phone number? Are they like, and I had to look it
Next to the
up.
baby on board.
There's T-shirts that say that. So I you know, it was a stupid post. It was a stupid post. I also think that he should have known what it was going to cause. Maybe he was bored and maybe he misses the limelight. Who knows? But here's my thing. The whole, like, you know, Republican hair on fire and Donald Trump, he, you know, needs to be investigated, should go to jail. Do we remember when Donald Trump said that Hillary Clinton is probably going to be taken care of by the Second Amendment people? I mean, what is that, right? And that seemed to be clearly an indication that maybe someone should come and take care of her with their Second Amendment right.
And not only that, he posted just last year that video of a truck that had Biden, an image of Biden tied up in the back of it. I mean, January 6th, I guess a lot of people memory hole January 6th, but I mean, he did, incite and egg on violence, and then he pardoned these people. So I think pardoning violent, what some call insurrectionists that attacked police officers sends more of a signal than 8647. I used to be a waiter when I used to work at IHOP. When we said 86, that pancake, it didn't mean assassinate the pancake.
Right.
But that's my focus is really the hypocrisy and where was this condemnation?
The big thing is that, first off, this is an incredibly humorous segment. I gotta chase numbers now. I gotta know 1981, by the way, my birthday. Like, we gotta do, like, this is ridiculous, first off. Second, James Comey knows better. Like,
Exactly.
that's, at the end of the day,
I think so, too.
at the end of the day, hand it to your daughter and be like, hey, should I put 8647? When you guys just said, and I just learned right now that there's merchandise being sold off of that.
Yes, there is.
That has a deeper meaning. Is
beforehand.
James Comey going to organize a group of people to kill Donald Trump? No. Do I
There's
get
crazy
that?
people out there.
I get that, but I get
I
it
guess
from
I'm
this.
wondering, reasonably, do we think that there are many crazy people out there, frankly, and you're totally right about that. Are they taking their orders
Yeah,
from
I
James
think- I
Comey,
think
who's
the
been a
congressional-
private
the
citizen?
congressional
for
shooter,
years?
the shooter in Florida, were motivated by leftist propaganda. I think that's a real thing.
Yeah,
And
a
by the
lot
way,
of
does anyone
shooters-
think he
you know
didn't
how
actually
Trump
do
does
it?
anything?
Wait,
A lot
does
of
anyone think he
people are
didn't do this
motivated
himself?
by propaganda.
There's just shells in 8647 on the beach right in front of James Comey's house. Does anyone not
I
think he
can't
did this
picture
himself?
James
no
Comey
idea.
bending
I
down
think so.
and
I couldn't
assembling
picture
that.
him posting a picture of it,
on your
but
point,
someone did.
I just want to touch on your point. You're talking about the leftist propaganda, right? It's just rich to see so much right-wing outrage over this when we've been calling out Trump echoing and Tucker Carlson verbatim rhetoric that was literally in white supremacist manifestos, right? When we
Well,
all of that, we see all of this
This needs to be
stuff.
pointed
Hold
out.
on.
Okay,
Right?
there's
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
survey from the network. I want to make sure I say it correctly. Network Contagion Research Institute, a survey they conducted in conjunction with Rutgers. It's on your lapel pin. And that survey showed that 55% of respondents that self-identify as left of center believe it is justified to mortally wound this president.
What was the reading on right of center people?
It was much, much lower.
Okay, well, what was it?
I don't know. I'll
Okay,
Google it
well,
after the
all right.
segment.
All right,
But the
let
point
me-
is, more than the majority of left
yeah,
of center.
I think that
And there
we
hasn't
have.
been assassination
Hold on a
either.
second.
There's one,
too.
Guys, we have a problem in this country of
Agreed.
political violence. There's no question about that. But I also think that we also have a lot of people some of whom are currently in power right now, like the FBI director, the guy who's actually in charge of the FBI right now, who have posted violent things on social media. Just
here we go.
watch this. He was asked about it in his confirmation hearing.
Mr. Patel proclaimed, "The manhunt starts tomorrow," and reposted a video depicting him taking a chainsaw to his political enemies. Is that you, Kash Patel, reposting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that.
Okay,
And he was right with his question.
I'll take his word for it that he didn't create the post, but he certainly reposted it.
He reposted
and
it.
I don't know. I mean, should he have gotten a call from the FBI and the Secret Service?
Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, you're right, Abby, we have a problem in this country. But it's also a fact that Donald Trump and all of his followers that are in power, not just the public, Donald Trump and some of the people in his cabinet, as you just showed, are people who do this, who talk about political violence, who have started this whole thing about political violence being okay in this country.
Girl, please.
And so
If you
I'm
don't
not
think the left does that, you live under a
Okay.
rock.
Without saying the word,
here's
without
the
saying
thing.
the word
You say
January
hold on
6th,
one
tell me one
second.
time.
Hold on one second. I'll let you in just a second, Joe. Let me just let her finish, and then you can get
Connect people who have been in office with that. Connect people who have run for office
Joe,
on the left.
Joe,
in that.
Joe,
And you can.
finish your
I
thought.
was going to say, without saying the words January 6th, point stipulators, tell me one time that there was rhetoric leading to a violent incident where a Democratic politician was physically nearly assassinated, without mentioning January 6th.
Without mentioning January.
We have
6th.
other, like
Wow.
Charlie's January 6th. We have
kind of a
we
good
have
one.
other
I'm
events.
just saying-
I know
I'm
you're
just
saying
saying.
politics.
That's the only thing you got.
But both are bad, Joe.
Which was
excusing?
I'm not. Investigations happen.
I also
Arrests were
think,
made.
let me just
Nothing like that
let me
happened
just
with
ask
Paul
this.
Pelosi.
Hold on, let me just ask
Paul
this.
Pelosi.
Well, yeah, there is Paul Pelosi.
And Trump mocked Paul Pelosi being attacked after the violence. So it's like, my thing is just enough of the double standard. Like, if you're going to condemn this, condemn Trump.
Right.
When he's
I also
doing
think
this
that
thing.
there's a question here about what is a threat of violence, what is a very stupid post, and you have the entire apparently Trump administration law enforcement apparatus going after this one guy who's been writing mystery novels for the last 6 years. Questions about where the priorities really are. And I'm not sure that it's answered by saying, well, there's political violence. I don't know that this qualifies. There is actually political violence that should actually be investigated. And I would hope that Kash Patel is on it.
Yeah, and I don't find it outrageous that he's being questioned. Donald Trump has been questioned. Others have been questioned, and a lot of folks just want to dismiss this off the bat and say, well, he shouldn't even have to answer questions. He didn't mean that. It was a mistake. No, he should have to answer questions, and good on him for going in voluntarily to answer the questions. It may have just been an innocent mistake, but he should have to answer to it.
But I guarantee you that Donald Trump's life is not in danger from James Comey.
But it could be from someone who saw the post.
Look,
You guarantee who? Why?
Literally was
Are
in
you married to
danger
James
last
Coleman?
year, so it is a problem. The real question is whether this post is really
Girl, please.
significant of
Girl,
anything.
please. Stop acting like you don't know what time it is. Talking about nobody should investigate it. It should be investigated.
There's one thing Republicans have been consistent on for decades. It's their strong opposition to tax hikes on anyone at any time. But now the president is signaling he may be ready to change that. We are told that the president, in a phone call with the House Speaker on Wednesday, raised the idea of letting the tax cuts on the wealthiest Americans expire. That would help pay for some of the spending cuts that they want to get to and other tax cuts as well. So that is a big question now, whether or not they will really consider this in the United States Congress run by Republicans. Traditional Republicans, they don't want to do that. Listen to the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune.
We don't want to raise taxes on anybody. I mean, we're about lowering taxes on Americans. The president's emphasis, a particular emphasis on working Americans, is one that most people appreciate.
The panel is back. Phil?
It is a very difficult moment for Republican leadership right now, not just because of this issue, but because reconciliation bills are really hard. Finding pay-fors for reconciliation bills is really hard, particularly when the president's priorities, which are red lines for this White House, and tax on tips being kind of the critical one we think about the campaign, there's several of them, are quite expensive. This is reality-based in the sense of they need revenue. This would be something that would raise revenue. This is politically, I think, something that tracks because there is a kind of populist right-wing element, not just in the White House, but also pushing on the White House to pursue policies like this. The difficulty is I don't see how you could find Republicans in the House or Senate that would go this direction. What makes it far more difficult is the fact that when the president posted about it this morning, he was like, well, I mean, I don't hate it. I don't love it. Maybe we'll do it. I don't really know, which is the last thing that Senator John Thune or Speaker Mike Johnson need in this moment. Like, they need him to say yes or no, and then go forward from there.
Although it's a trial balloon. I mean, this is.
But he's already floated it twice.
Yeah.
And then killed it himself, and then had his advisors kill it, and then House Republicans killed it, and now it's back, and now he's wishy-washy on it. And that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah, I understand. That's a really good point. And you mentioned, Phil, the idea that this is also coming from the newer wing of the Republican Party, which is the more populist part, particularly part of the MAGA base, and that is led by Steve Bannon. Listen to what he said on this idea.
You extend the tax cuts for the working class and middle class. You give them the additional tax cuts. And millionaires, I think President Trump's concept is the millionaire people making $1 million and above, so it's not the whole upper bracket. They increased to 40%. But I think they're, the carried interest has got to go away. This whole phony thing about putting your stock in these foundations tax-free has to go away. I actually think there should be taxes on financial transactions. I think there's all types of populist economic policies.
And I guess this is what I'd say, based off of what Phil was saying and Bannon and everything else. It's May 9th. The Republicans have been projecting that they would get this bill done by the end of May. I don't think that is likely at the moment. This is complicated in all sorts of ways. They don't have a big margin. It's a couple of votes in the House that they can lose. House members are saying they can't trust the Senate. Senate members are saying they can't.
So it's a day that ends in Y.
Yeah.
Also, how are they going to reach the cuts that they want to reach? Which is they can't do it unless they start cutting things like Medicaid, which is a whole other
But that's what I don't know how much this revenue this would get, but that's part of what they're trying to grapple with.
It could
get more money.
But Steve Bannon himself has also said he's pushing Trump obviously on raising taxes for the wealthy, but he's also saying you better not cut Medicaid because that impacts our voters as well.
Yeah, and as we go to break, I just want to put a reminder up. Grover Norquist, who has been getting Republicans to pledge no tax increases for years, he got 191 House members and 44 senators to make that pledge. So they would literally have to go against that pledge to go with this idea.
President Trump raised the idea of higher taxes for the wealthy during a phone call with House Speaker Mike Johnson earlier this week. In a new social media post this morning, the president suggested that he's open to the idea, but acknowledged the political risk that it would pose to Republican lawmakers. I'm told President Trump wants a top income bracket for people making more than $2.5 million per year for taxes, and that he also wants to tax income above that level at 39.6%. So let's discuss this now with Republican Congressman Carlos Gimenez of Florida. Thanks for coming back on the show, Congressman. Always nice to have you. So, bottom line, is putting more taxes on the wealthy something that you and other Republicans can get on board with?
Okay, so now Democrats are saying that, well, don't increase taxes on the rich. I thought y'all wanted to increase taxes on the rich. They don't know what they want. The left do not know what they want. It's incredible.
While shoplifting, is it a crime? In MAGA world, apparently not. That observation from journalist Dave Weigel defines Trump's for a week after a trip filled with diplomatic progress. It was instead dominated by the president accepting a free luxury jet from Qatar, a nation that he once called funders of terror. Trump says that only stupid people would reject such a gift, but those people include many members of his own party. Heck, the 2016 version of Donald Trump thought that as well.
Saudi Arabia giving $25 million, Qatar, all of these countries. You talk about women and women's rights. So these are people that push gays off buildings. These are people that kill women and treat women horribly, and yet you take their money. My goal is to keep foreign money out of American politics. Hillary Clinton's goal is to put the Oval Office up for sale to whatever country offers the highest price.
Now, this is hardly the only action that's blurring the ethical, legal, and moral lines of a presidency. His crypto ventures, his meme coin and private dinners, his son's billion-dollar deals with nations the U.S. does business with. And yet, the Speaker of the House says if you can see it, it's all good.
The reason they many people refer to the Bidens as the Biden crime family is because they were doing all this stuff behind curtains, but in the back rooms. They were trying to conceal it. What President Trump is doing is out in the open. They're not trying to conceal anything.
But Mr. Speaker, the investment in the meme coin, those folks are not transparent. We do not know who those people are.
I don't know anything about the meme coin thing. I don't know. I can just tell you that, I mean, President Trump has had nothing to hide.
I love the kind of two sides of the coin here for Republicans. It's always, I don't know anything about that, but I can just tell you that they're being extremely transparent. I don't know, is transparency the antidote to corruption?
Can I just go back a second? The follow-up question there is, are you saying that what he is doing right now in the open, are we listening to the same thing? Like, you just admitted that he's doing it in the open, so it's okay to do it in the open? It's still screams of impropriety, smells of it, right? So the follow-up question has to be a lot more rigorous, but I do agree with what you're saying. Republicans have been getting asked this a bunch now, and everyone has to go back to their talking points about, look, the jet, he is flying on an older White House plane. Yeah, that's conflating two different things. We can talk about the plane separately, but right now he would be receiving a gift and it would scream of impropriety. And also, as other law enforcement officials have said, they'd have to sweep the plane. There could be something underneath.
We keep coming back to this sort of divide. This is not an ideological issue.
Correct,
There's no
correct.
reason why the right or Republicans should be like, this is fine. This is clear corruption. This is emoluments. This is against the Constitution. This is just the process of running government. And it's like the due process issue, which is also not ideological. The right should agree we should use the courts before we throw people out of the country. But we keep arguing about process, and the right follows him. So they're like Trumpist, and we're like pro-Constitution, pro-democracy, anti-fascism. Just follow the Constitution. This should not be an ideological issue.
I feel like this is where I have to say, even Ben Shapiro, because even Ben Shapiro thinks that perhaps this may be across the line.
Yes, I think inherently it is bad. I do not think this is good. I think if we switch the names to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, we'd all be freaking out on the right. Let's say if Qatar was giving Joe a $400 million jet for his use at his presidential library after his presidency, or if Hunter launched a crypto firm with the son of Antony Blinken and then launched a series of crypto products in which mysterious strangers, including foreigners, were investing, all while that crypto firm was being regulated by Joe's administration, we'd all have been pretty upset on the right.
I have nothing else to say because I think that lays it out pretty clearly what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
he's absolutely right. I mean, listen, another element that you can't ignore in this is the Qataris basically house Hamas and they shield their finances, which are used for international terrorism, which have been used to wage this war against Israel, one of our closest allies in the Middle East. So way to step on your own message, Donald Trump. You just got Idan Alexander, the last remaining American-Israeli hostage, back in the same day you're taking Qatari blood money.
Yeah, the only way you should take the plane is if all the hostages are on it. And you know, I mean, the leadership of Hamas is three doors down.
But even when I was a White House official, we couldn't take a gift over $20. And even so, if it was, you had to report it to an ethics advisor, take an accounting of it. But we were also told, don't even take.
How many times will Trump tell these people that it's for the Defense Department? How many times?
A pen from a foreign diplomat, a head of state, because it likely has surveillance technology on it. What it's going to take to go through this Boeing 747 and take out anything that could be surveillance technology and pose a national security threat, it's going to cost so much money.
Well, part of what we did this week also was normalize Hamas. We negotiated with Hamas. The plane could be a gift for that. It's probably a gift for the business that he's doing there, but it could be a gift for that. Qatar does fund Hamas, right? I mean, they would consider them a freedom fighter, right? Not.
But
you're
not suggesting it's a bad idea to have gotten Idan Alexander out of.
No, of course that specific part of this is a good idea. But we don't negotiate with terrorists. So if we negotiate with them, then they are not terrorists. And I'm sure that Israel would not appreciate that conversation.
Well, again, all I care about is do those hostages come home back to their families, and do the ones that have been killed get to bury their remains in a dignified way. And I don't think the families care.
Exactly.
Also, we have to say that Donald Trump has made a pretty high priority of getting American hostages home, more than Joe Biden did, more than Barack Obama did, more than he did in his first term. And I think we got to give him credit for that.
I have to say, to be honest, that's not actually accurate. I mean, Joe Biden brought a lot of Americans home, too. And frankly, the people working on this are not people who are like stamping R's and D's next to their name. Okay, they're not doing it for partisan reasons.
And the presidential. For this.
I just have to say that because I know some of these people. I've talked to a lot of them. They are not partisan people. They are people who are fighting every day to get
Would you agree
Americans
he has prioritized it and he's had success at it?
He's prioritized it for the people that he's brought back so far in his.
Why can't we just say yes?
Term.
He's prioritized it and he's done a good job.
Guess what I'm saying is Joe Biden has brought a lot of Americans home too. It's just that you didn't pay attention to it because
it's not a running scoreboard.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But okay, but here's the thing.
CNN is the worst.
He's prioritized it for the people that he's brought back so far in his.
Why can't we just say yes?
Term.
He's prioritized it and he's done a good job.
Guess what I'm saying is Joe Biden has brought a lot of Americans home too. It's just that you didn't pay attention to it because
it's not a running scoreboard.
Yeah,
like it's not a tablet.
But okay,
we're just trying to bring people back.
Here's the thing. Okay, I have to say about this crypto thing. This crypto thing is 1,000 times bigger and more significant than the plane. The plane is crazy and weird in a way because Trump just likes nice things. But the crypto thing is a massive, perhaps multi-billion-dollar scheme to make tons of money for his family while he is in office that he is actively participating in, and nobody's saying a word about it.
Well, we're talking about it, but this is just give me money just because you like me, or you might have a chance to meet me, or even tour the White House. This is completely inappropriate. This is selling the presidency and privatizing the presidency, making money off of being the president. You are not supposed to make money off of being the president.
And look at the hurdles that we're all doing right now, the mental gymnastics that we're all doing, even though we all are in agreement, like that this is wrong. And so it's incumbent upon us as media, whether it be independent media or part of this network, we have to start asking the questions and framing them in the correct manner. Mr. President, this is inappropriate as Therese said before, as per the laws of this land. Like, do you understand the impropriety here? Do you understand that you're asking? Like, we have to start. I don't think they get asked rigorously enough, though. That's the problem.
With the media, we are asking the question. The problem is the corruption and the unethical behavior.
I also think that the question is about the mechanisms of enforcing the law, right? So, if Congress says, oh, nothing to see here, then there's not a whole lot left that people can do. And I'm just wondering about, do you think at some point somebody has to say to the president, this has to stop? Or is that just not going to happen and they're just going to pocket all of this money?
Well, I think he's going to continue on with his private business in the way that his family has always done their private business. They're in the development business, for instance. I think that's
not in the development business.
Hold on.
But the crypto stuff is not real estate.
I don't,
it's just
by the way, I don't
fake
think
Trump
he should do the meme coin. But I'm a critic of a lot of cryptocurrencies. I think the President of the United States and the Congress of the United States ought to be trying to promote the dollar as the store of value worldwide, and I'm a crypto skeptic. So I'm certainly a skeptic of a meme coin by any celebrity, much less the President of the United States. So I think that's a bad idea. But I think the Congress is focused on plenty of other things. The Congress is focused on reconciliation bill. They're focused on foreign affairs. I don't think it's really high on their list.
If I could just mention on the meme coin aspect of it, listen, it doesn't feel like draining the swamp. There's obviously the pay-for-play access of it. But I'm also frankly offended by some of his die-hard followers who don't have a lot of money to spend, who fell for the scheme and are not making money back on it. They're not getting something out of it the way the Chinese investor who's going to want an ask down the road does. It just feels like taking advantage of the very people who put you into office.
Yeah, they're putting a lot of money into this meme coin, and when the value drops, which inevitably it will, they're going to lose their hats in all of this.
Somebody said Mike Johnson is a disappointment so far. All right, South Africa. They're coming to the United States. White South Africans are coming into the United States because of threats. Check this out.
Should be offered help and safety regardless of race. So why is the United States, why is the president not living up to that? Right now, no refugees are being resettled in the U.S., not from the Congo, from Sudan, Afghanistan, Haiti. The only exception is South Africa, specifically Afrikaners, a white minority group of landowners that's claiming discrimination. And here's President Trump on Friday defending the fairness of prioritizing white South Africans.
If I see people in distress, I don't care what color, what they look like, what anything. Their size, their height, their eyes, I don't care. But I think that from all evidence, the farmers in South Africa are being treated brutally. and it's been reported, and nobody wants to cover it. But they happen to be white, and if they were black, I'd do the exact same thing. And we treat people very well when we see there's a genocide going on. So if it's a genocide, that's terrible, and I happen to believe it could very well be. So we've made a home, and we'll make a home for other people that are treated badly, no matter what their color.
A flight carrying the first group of 59 South Africans arrived on Monday. On that same day, the Secretary of Homeland Security addressed the termination of temporary protected status for Afghans. It's set to expire Monday the 19th. Now, the Secretary of Homeland Security said in a statement that we reviewed the conditions in Afghanistan with our interagency partners, and they do not meet the requirements for TPS designation. Kristi Noem cites an improved security situation and stabilizing economy. Afghanistan is run by the Taliban. Bishop Sean Rowe of the Episcopal Church came out this week to say it's wrong for the U.S. to make a home, as the president put it, for white South Africans, but then not do the same for Afghans. As a result, Bishop Rowe says the church is withdrawing from the U.S. refugee resettlement program.
We had people waiting on airplanes. We had people who have helped our country, that have been translators for our military, that have been patriots for this country, that are waiting in camps while white Afrikaners are being let in on a fast track. We feel like that as a moral matter, we can't participate in.
So a lot to talk about with Tricia McLaughlin. She's back with us. She's the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. Tricia, welcome back. Let me start here. Despite the president's repeated reference, can we just start this conversation by agreeing that Afrikaners are not facing genocide?
Absolutely not. First of all, I have to correct the facts, Victor. You said that no refugees were let in. Under President Donald Trump, since January 20th, 8,666 individuals have been granted asylum. Those people have faced persecution for their politics, persecution for the color of their skin, their religion, and that includes those 59 Afrikaners who came in this country last week who have faced racial violence at the hand of their own government. They've had their land seized because of the color of their skin. There's been over 140 laws enacted that are race-based and to discriminate against racial minorities. So I got to correct the facts where you're wrong, Victor, and you're wrong.
So, several things. President Ramaphosa says that although the law was signed in January that would give the government the purview to take the land, no land has been taken from Afrikaners. Also, that's President Ramaphosa. He'll be at the White House this week. Take it up with him. Also, the definition of genocide is aimed at extermination, right? And so although there is violence in South Africa, there's violence against black South Africans, too. So when the president says that there is genocide, where is the evidence? The U.S. has not recognized officially genocide. The United Nations has not recognized genocide. And for the thousands of people who you say were let into this country who've been granted asylum,
Absolutely.
I'm talking under the refugee resettlement program, which the president froze by executive order early in his administration.
Victor, can we take a pause and
Sure.
recognize the fact that you are defending race-based discrimination? You are defending race-based violence.
I'm not
Yes, you are.
defending race-based discrimination in any way. The president uses the term genocide. There is no genocide in South Africa. And frankly, it does a disservice to people in countries around the world who are facing genocide in the Congo, in Sudan, those who faced it in Rwanda and Bosnia and Cambodia. So when the president says that there's genocide in South Africa, it does not exist. We should probably just start with that truth.
Okay, if you're going to allow me on your program, I'd like to speak.
You're welcome
Again,
to.
we have granted asylum to 8,666 individuals since January 20th, regardless of color or creed. It is quite frankly disturbing to me that members of the media, including people who are on this very network, are trying to whitewash the facts and whitewash the fact that these individuals have faced discrimination, racial violence, the seizure of their land based on nothing but their skin color alone. This is the United States of America, a land of opportunity, and we will help those who are facing persecution from the government of South Africa.
So you clearly are not going to acknowledge there's no genocide in South Africa. What about the genocide in the Congo? Will there be this expedited path available to the Congolese and to the Sudanese who are facing actual genocide?
Again, Victor, 8,666 individuals have been granted
You have
asylum.
a specific number on asylum. How many of those are from the Congo or from the Sudan?
I'm happy to come back next week and lay out all the single facts, but the fact that you have not addressed the fact that we have helped these individuals who are facing persecution, and you seem to want to whitewash the fact that South Afrikaners are facing persecution, and I can't understand why, and I think a lot of Americans can't understand why, and it's left to believe that it's because of the color of their skin, Victor.
So you suggest that I am the one here who is focused on color of skin when the president has let in Afrikaners specifically, and I'm asking how many of those who are actually facing genocide, who are from the Sudan and who are from Congo, who are being let in under some expedited path that the president has created for Afrikaners?
I don't know how many times I have to repeat this fact. 8,666 individuals have, if you will let me speak, have
You've
faced
repeated the number. You
persecution,
haven't
are given
answered the
asylum.
question.
I'm exactly answering the question. Regardless of color or creed, we will allow you into this country if you are facing persecution and you go through the proper vetting. You can be from the Congo, you can be from Rwanda. We are letting those in who are facing persecution, Victor.
I'll look for those numbers. Let me get you last thing here on this game show that's being pitched to the Department of Homeland Security. This is the producer who is pitching this. We've got some sound from him. His name is Rob Warsoff. Let's play what he describes this show as, immigrants competing for American citizenship. Let's play it.
I think they're taking it seriously. I feel good about it. I'm not the Department of Homeland Security, so I can't tell you the whirlwind of the last 24 to 48 hours since my pitch document was leaked to somebody in the press. I don't know where they stand exactly now, but I feel like we're trending in a good way. And I have interest from networks. I have interest from production companies to pair with, and I feel good about it.
And so he says that the department is taking it seriously. Is DHS taking this pitch seriously?
Victor, I receive hundreds of pitches a year for scripted shows, for docuseries on anything from TSA to FEMA to U.S. Coast Guard to Secret Service to CBP to ICE. We review them all thoroughly. We give everyone a shot to make their pitch, but this is still in the very, very beginning phases. Secretary Noem is not even aware of this pitch, or sure wasn't until this Daily Mail fake story came out that she was backing it. So again, I haven't even reviewed the pitch doc, so we'll take a look.
So you haven't reviewed the pitch doc. Has someone in the department, for him to say they're taking it seriously, has had several meetings, is this something, well, let me rephrase the question because you've answered that one. Why consider, after all that we've discussed, how serious who's being brought into this country, the refugee program, immigration, literally turning it into a game? Why consider that?
Victor, we get hundreds of pitches, pitch decks, and they go to one person's office and they're reviewed. Again, I've not reviewed that pitch deck. So for you to say we're taking anything seriously is just not true.
I asked if you're taking it seriously, but you gave your answer. Tricia McLaughlin, always good to have you on the show. Thanks.
CNN. More CNN, ladies and gentlemen. More CNN. Sleepy Joe next. Sleepy Joe is like a legend to CNN. He's an icon, the greatest president to ever do it.
Joe Biden totally effed us. That, a quote from a Kamala Harris official in a new book that paints a damning picture of how far the White House went to hide his decline. Among the revelations from Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book, Biden's team hid him from his staff and even members of his cabinet. They considered that he may need a wheelchair in the future and contradicted warnings from his doctor. And Biden didn't recognize George Clooney, one of his longtime supporters, and of course, one of the most famous movie stars and faces on the planet. But as the scandal branches grow, what about the people who have political runways, the Pete Buttigeg's of the world, hitting a Midwest tour, Kamala Harris thinking about a run for California governor? Will and should their futures be impacted by this scandal? It kind of seems like the answer has to be yes, right?
Well, wait a minute.
Especially for someone like Kamala Harris,
The problem
who's
is
in the
now
White House.
every Democrat's rushing to say, oh my gosh, Joe Biden wasn't fit to run for re-election. But they let him stay in running the country for another 5 months. It's complete hypocrisy to say, yes, we think he wasn't fit, but it was okay that policy continued to be made and we didn't ask him to step down.
It's tragic for the Democratic Party to have let him go on so long when clearly people around him knew that there was a serious problem. The people closest to him had been close to him for years, most of them like 20 years. So they were super loyal to him, more than normal analysts, activists who come and go. I don't know that I retain, as a Democrat, if I retain being a Democrat, if I'm mad at Pete Buttigieg because he didn't wait. Am I mad at Kamala? I would not think it would be her responsibility to say, you're not. Now, might she say something privately? Yeah, but I would not expect her to publicly.
But I guess
That's what the 25th Amendment's all about,
you
though.
so much, but like because you're left-leaning. I'm talking about the average American. When they ask the question, what did you know and when did you know it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And I think one of the things that is in the excerpts from this book is this idea that it wasn't just that Kamala Harris only had 100 plus days to run, but that the idea that Americans felt like they were being deceived by the Democratic Party, it tainted her in that last election already.
She did the deceiving. She said
Well,
he
I
was
think
sharp
that this
as
is
a
the
tack.
question.
Well,
I mean, how does she escape that?
This was something where I think the public was ahead of where the politicians and even to some degree the media was. 2 years before the disastrous debate, we were sitting there together, Abby, there were polls that were showing 67% of Americans thought Joe Biden was too old to have another term. And Democratic politicians did not listen to those warnings. And I interviewed Joe Biden a week and a half ago on The View. I left thinking he definitely could not have done another 4 years. I'm grateful for his service. He had a good command of the facts of things he was proud of to talk about that he did, but there was just no way that Joe Biden could do 4 more years. And I do think the future leaders of the party have to say something better than it's time to look forward. They need to address that the public was saying we need someone else, and they waited until the last minute and frankly did not have a particularly
Can I ask
democratic
one quick
process.
question, Melissa, about that interview? I mean, what did you make of the fact that Jill Biden was there with him?
I thought it was very unhelpful. I asked the specific question about allegations of his cognitive decline, and he began to answer it, and then she jumped in for him. And I get it, as a spouse, you want to help your partner, but that was his moment to knock out of the park any fear that he has cognitive decline, and it played into basically the worst assumptions, that he can't finish sentences and she had to help him out.
I think Democrats have to start doing what these two things right here, start listening a little bit more, because Representative Dean Phillips went on a tour in November, October. He went on Pod Save America, where all David Plouffe and all these folks went to complain about how they didn't have enough time. And they didn't listen to Dean Phillips and others that were warning about Joe Biden was not in the best position to lead the party to beat Donald Trump. Back to your data point. There was polling that showed we didn't want a rematch. You and I did Super Tuesday. We were talking about this, like America doesn't even want a rematch. It was like 67% of Americans don't want a rematch. Going back to the journalistic angle where I come from this, you know, we did this on the show recently where a lot of segments, when we were listening back to KJP press conferences, a lot of the questions were focused on.
Jean-Pierre,
press secretary, thank you. We were doing a lot, she was taking a lot of questions about how voters feel about Joe Biden's age.
Yeah.
But that's not the questions. The questions, again, back to this journalist part of framing questions. The man fell off a bike. The man gave a terrible debate performance and looked like he was completely out of it. 2020, he does an interview with CBS News and he looks incredibly cogent and he looks like he's there. And now what we're seeing is a frail old man, right? And so like, there's gotta be something timeline-wise that we continue to ask, what is being hidden? So now that the book is coming out, and again, Jake's coming on my show, so I'm gonna ask him about this, but it's something's curious about it. It's different than what I'm talking about with the Democratic Party.
I think you're right.
Everybody knows older people who, again, it's a good day, bad day kind of situation.
Right.
I think that's part of the difficulty of this story.
But the 25th Amendment's there so that the bad days, you don't accept them. And we don't let someone stay in the job who has the days that are that bad. I think Mike's right, though. Dean Phillips is owed a big apology.
Huge.
And that's something that's missing in this analysis by Democrats, this autopsy. No one's saying we should have listened to Dean Phillips. And the reason they didn't listen to Dean Phillips, who was a member of the Democratic leadership, who'd won in a tough suburban district, who was sufficiently liberal to satisfy most liberals, is Trump derangement syndrome. Most Democrats and a lot of people in the news media were so furious at the thought that Donald Trump could win, they didn't want to risk an open primary. They were all in on the game. It was all a rigging for Joe Biden.
Multiple federal courts have blocked the president from implementing a new order that would deny birthright citizenship to children whose parents are in the United States illegally. And while that issue is at the heart of this case, it wasn't really what the justices were even hearing arguments on today. Instead, that mainly focused on whether or not a judge can single-handedly block the president's executive order with what's known as a nationwide injunction. The conservative justices actually signaled that they were open to limiting that power, but several raised questions about what would happen if the president's order can stand as the courts are working out a case.
This is just a very practical question, how this is going to work. What do hospitals do with a newborn? What do states do with a newborn?
Let's just assume you're dead wrong. How do we get to that result? Does every single person that is affected by this EO have to bring their own suit?
So when a new president orders that because there's so much gun violence going on in the country, and he comes in and he says, I have the right to take away the guns from everyone, then people, and he sends out the military to seize everyone's guns. We and the courts have to sit back and wait until every named plaintiff gets, or every plaintiff whose gun is taken comes into court.
My legal source tonight is CNN's senior legal analyst, Ellie Honig. And Ellie, I wonder, just given what we heard from the justices and their clear concern about chaos reigning throughout the United States, what were your biggest takeaways from today?
Well, Caitlin, both sides of this argument have a major problem. On the one hand, people who are in favor, the challengers here, the people who are in favor of nationwide injunctions, it's obviously an example of judicial overreach. District court judges, there are 700 of them or so in this country spread across 94 federal districts. They are supposed to decide the case before them as to the parties before them. And it really does offend Title III sensibilities for judges, individual judges, to be making decisions that apply to the entire country. On the other hand, if we got rid of these nationwide injunctions, as you just heard in those snippets you played, chaos would follow. How would we possibly take birthright citizenship? Why should a baby born in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia have one status, but a baby born in New Jersey have another status? Who's going to track it? So both sides have really deeply entrenched problems with their positions here.
Well, and it was interesting to hear from John Sauer, who's arguing on behalf of the government. He's the Solicitor General, basically number 3 at the DOJ. And he said to Justice Brett Kavanaugh that it's not clear how the president would enforce this executive order. I want people to just listen to what the Solicitor General had to say.
The states can continue to, the federal officials will have to figure that out.
How?
So you could imagine a number of ways that the federal officials could.
Such as?
Such as they could require a showing of, documentation showing legal presence in the country for a temporary visitor, for example.
For all the newborns? Is that how that's going to work?
Again, we don't know.
I mean, Kavanaugh sounded pretty skeptical there.
Yeah, that's the sound of a justice unconvinced. That's a bad moment for John Sauer. And let me tell you why that's especially important. If you're trying to sort of game out how might this decision come down. First of all, I think Trump's going to lose ultimately on birthright citizenship. I think his position departs too far from the way we've looked at that for 157 years. Every judge who's considered this lower court judge, regardless of ideology, has rejected that position. But the real ball game here is those nationwide injunctions. It's clear the 3 liberal justices are going to be against Trump on them. It's clear Alito and Thomas are going to be for him. So the ballgame is, can you, if you're on the liberal side, get 2 out of Gorsuch, Roberts, Barrett, and Kavanaugh? And I think Kavanaugh sees a real problem with the practicalities here. And I think Amy Coney Barrett also voiced some real questions that I think would be of concern to the Trump administration.
The court now has 2 questions to weigh if it chooses. Can lower courts impose nationwide injunctions? And fundamentally, does the 14th Amendment mean something other than what it appears to say? With me here to argue the case, best-selling Supreme Court biographer and former federal prosecutor Jeffrey Toobin, also CNN political analyst and New York Times White House correspondent Maggie Haberman. Jeff, just on the legal front, regarding those 2 aspects of how this may be decided, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think ultimately birthright citizenship is going to be upheld. I mean, there doesn't seem to be much sentiment on the court to adopt the Trump position on birthright citizenship. However, the issue of nationwide injunctions, which is a big issue, it was big under President Biden, it's big now. The court seems quite torn on that issue because, and it's a very hard question, because it's obviously a problem when liberal lawyers can run to San Francisco and get one nationwide injunction, and conservative lawyers can run to Amarillo, Texas, and get a different.
And we've seen both that done under different administrations.
And that is not how the legal system is supposed to work. However, when you have something like birthright citizenship, it is a good idea to have a national rule. So a nationwide injunction is a good idea. So how do you differentiate between cases? I mean, you don't want to have a situation where you have birthright citizenship in New York but not in Texas. It should be one rule for the country. And so the issue is, how do you differentiate between issues where it's appropriate to have a nationwide injunction and have it, and some where it's not? And I don't think the court has really sorted that out at all. They seem pretty much at sea on
Maggie, do you have any sense how the administration feels about how things went?
Hey, look, they are happy that this fight is at the Supreme Court. This fight over nationwide injunctions is one they have wanted for some time. Separately, the one over birthright citizenship is one they have wanted for a while. Some folks in the administration believe they will ultimately be successful on a birthright citizenship case, even if it's not this one. On the nationwide injunctions, this relates to a lot of their efforts in this administration going forward. If the court ends up doing something in their favor or takes time making this decision, they believe that all at least adheres to them in some way. This administration has yoked, the public relations component and the press component and what people read with the legal component, and they think that if people are seeing that the justices themselves are grappling with this, it gives more weight to what they're arguing. Even if they don't actually win on the point, there are enough people who will question what they are seeing when judges issue nationwide injunctions if they continue.
And how quickly would a ruling come through, Jeff?
Well, they seem very concerned about acting quickly, more than in the usual case, because they recognize that the uncertainty generated by nationwide injunctions, when nationwide injunctions may be illegal, is something that's a big problem for the legal system. So, we're already late in the term. I mean, the term usually ends beginning of July. Here we are, the middle of May. But I would suspect there's going to be a decision in this case even before the end of the term, because they really want to get some sort of order around this, especially when it's not just birthright citizenship, but a lot of the Trump initiatives are being challenged in court, and there really should be one rule for the whole country.
And is the administration ready to act on this?
Well, if they win in this case, yes, they're going to move forward quite quickly, and you are going to see a rollout of a number of executive actions. Look, they're very proud of how many executive actions they have taken. They are very proud of basically trying to expand and maximize executive power in ways, obviously, that critics say is going beyond the scope of their authority. But they are maneuvering around Congress, and they have been trying to both do 2 things. One is to try to get things before the Supreme Court so they can then have whatever they are trying to do either signed off of or not signed off of, and then they'll try again in certain cases. But they are also attempting to attack the legitimacy of some of what courts nationwide are doing in general. You are seeing Stephen Miller doing it. You've seen Elon Musk doing it. Trump is doing it, albeit to a slightly lesser degree. If they succeed here, they will move very quickly. But what aspects of their agenda, we'll see.
Well, but if they succeed in any way in limiting nationwide injunctions, that's good for the Trump administration. And that is, I mean, because ultimately,
because that is the only thing that is stopping a number of these executive orders.
And everything. I mean, the main story of the first months of the Trump administration has been this attempt to expand executive authority and the courts reeling it back in certain circumstances. To the extent you can limit the courts, that helps the Trump administration. So any sort of limitation on that,
it is
which seems
Maggie,
possible,
how
is likely.
they were pulling every lever in every realm. It's remarkable.
Look, we heard Steve Bannon talk about flooding the zone in 2017 when they first came in. This is an entirely different order of magnitude. They are not just with policy, but basically with every system that they can, trying to either attack it or take ownership of it or neutralize it, and the courts are the last vestige.
Yeah. Maggie Haberman, Jeff Toobin, thanks very much.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. What is going on with these tornadoes around the United States? But before that, we're also going to check out this Newark, New Jersey ICE detention center. It's been going bonkers.
Now in Worcester, Massachusetts, following the chaotic ICE arrest of a woman last week, Worcester police are now releasing dramatic police body cam video of the incident. What you see here, neighbors and a family member trying to stop ICE agents from arresting the woman. Worcester officials say after considering the chaos that erupted, they're now exploring how their employees, including police, should interact with federal immigration agents. CNN's Gloria Pezmino is following all of this. Gloria, help put all of this into context for us.
Yeah, Fred, and that's important because what we're seeing here is essentially a municipality that is struggling with what to do when federal law enforcement agents show up in its town to enforce immigration law. And that's exactly what we were seeing here. You had ICE enforcement show up to Worcester, Massachusetts to arrest a woman. And it was during that attempt that chaos erupted, as you can see in the video. Now, the city has released the video in part to try and get some clarity about exactly what happened here. Now, let me explain what you're looking at here. There was a woman in a house in Worcester, Massachusetts, taking care of an infant and a 16-year-old. ICE showed up. She called the 16-year-old's mother to come and help. As it turns out, ICE was there to arrest the mother of the 16-year-old. When they moved in to arrest her, the 16-year-old tried to block the ICE officers from being able to take her. It turns out that that was the teenager's mother who they were trying to arrest. Now, it gets really chaotic here, where she is holding an infant, you can see it there, and she is standing in front of a police vehicle in an attempt to block it. And this is where things really begin to fall apart, right? Because they are blocking this police video. They're holding an infant in their arms, putting that child in danger. And now you have immigration officers who are trying to make an arrest and local police who are trying to keep things under control. There's a lot of people surrounding the officers. People are chanting, "Do not take the mother," again, that the woman that ICE is there to arrest. And so this is a really chaotic situation, and that's why local police responded. Now, the 16-year-old was eventually arrested and charged. You can see there that she's holding the infant, along with another woman who was also charged with assault and battery on a police officer, among other charges. Now, we are told that the woman who was going to be arrested by ICE, according to DHS, she had been previously arrested by local police for assault and battery with a dangerous weapon and assault and battery on a pregnant victim. That's who they were there to arrest. Now, as I said, the city of Worcester tried to release this video in order to bring clarity to what happened here. And here's what the city manager had to say in part, quote, "I want to reassure our community that the municipality will never target individuals based on their immigration status and reaffirm that the City of Worcester and Worcester Police Department does not assist ICE with civil detainments, according to Massachusetts state law. But they may not interfere with it. So the city manager there acknowledging that there's only so much they can do in a situation like this where it becomes so chaotic, where you have both the public and law enforcement officers potentially in danger. The local police had to step in. Fred?
All right. Gloria Pazmino, thank you so much for that. All right, the U.S. Supreme Court has blocked the Trump administration from moving forward with deportations under the 1798 Alien Enemies Act, a sweeping wartime authority. Friday's ruling from the nation's top court applies to a group of Venezuelan immigrants in northern Texas. The justices sent the case back to an appeals court to decide other underlying questions, including whether the president's move is legal. President Trump lashed out at the ruling on social media, writing, quote, "The Supreme Court won't allow us to get criminals out of our country," end quote. All right, joining me right now with more on all of this, the impact of this ruling, Jeffrey Jacobowitz. He's an adjunct law professor at the Washington College of Law at American University. He's also a trial attorney. Great to see you, Jeffrey. So,
good to see you.
All right, help us understand the significance of this ruling. Did the court rule, at all on the legality of using the Alien Enemies Act, or instead deferred it to a lower court?
No, what they did really is defer it to a lower court, and they didn't say you cannot do it, but they said that these deportees are entitled to due process, and you can't just pick them up and take them out of the country. You need to have hearings pursuant to the Fifth Amendment, and this hasn't been happening. And so the court decision is once again against the Trump administration on an immigration matter.
So now this will mean due process to anyone moving forward, but how about retroactively for those who have been deported or are about to be processed and be deported? If they have not been given due process, will that now have to be extended according to this ruling?
Well, that's a very good question, Fred, because the issue will be, will the Trump administration follow this ruling? And they have not followed some of the rulings. They have followed others. And for example, Judge Boasberg asked them to bring the planes back or stop the planes, and the Trump administration did not do that. So you have people already who have been taken out of the country and are in El Salvador. The court is saying you cannot do that. The court is saying you need to have hearings first to legitimize it. And obviously, I think lower courts will rule that these people have to be brought back once their lawyers file for hearings. The question is, will they do it? Will the Trump administration do it?
Okay, and you just underscored already the Trump administration has defied at least one order or two. So then what happens if this continues to be a pattern of defying a court order, no matter what level of court it is?
Well, Judge Boasberg already started looking at contempt proceedings against DOJ officials or others, and the D.C. Circuit put a hold to it. But now we have a Supreme Court decision which is clear-cut that there has to be due process. We have Judge Innes, who has asked the administration to bring somebody back. They haven't done it. And so the only way you can really rectify it is to hold people in contempt, but it doesn't mean that ultimately it will happen, because if you hold somebody in contempt, Trump can pardon them.
But he wouldn't or couldn't pardon them until the end of the year. But so in the duration or in the midst of it all right now, what would contempt actually look like for any of these parties who would be disrespectful of an order?
Sure, there can be civil contempt or criminal contempt. Generally, criminal contempt, you have to refer over to the Department of Justice, and Attorney General Bondi hasn't shown any inclination to hold people in contempt. So if it's civil contempt, you can fine people. And it could be, a big fine. It could be smaller fine. But that is one way to do it. And a contempt proceeding could impact on, for example, a DOJ attorney's ability to practice before the bar in D.C.
Have the muscles of the judicial system ever been stretched like this before, from what you can recall?
Well, there have been stretches, but this is pretty blatant and direct. And even statements by the administration about, well, they will likely follow most of the decisions or something along those lines is somewhat surprising. And we're in new territory here. And whether they will follow it is really a $64,000 question.
All right. Jeffrey Jacobowitz, always great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. All right. Virginia restricting police work. Check this out. Crazy. I don't know what is going on in the United States now. Well, a lot is going on. These folks don't want the police to do their job.
Leadership sending what some see as a dangerous message. The county board voting unanimously to bar local police from cooperating with federal authorities in arresting criminal migrants, including those who have violent records or ties to gangs. Jason Miyares is the Attorney General for the Commonwealth of Virginia. He joins us now. Mr. Attorney General, thanks so much for joining us. I just want to highlight for our audience what the law used to be in Arlington County regarding cooperation between local and federal officials. Used to be that the two could cooperate if the person is here illegally and has been identified as a gang member who has committed a criminal gang offense, if an illegal immigrant has committed a violent felony and is considered a threat to the community, and if an illegal immigrant is arrested for human trafficking or a terrorist attack. That now has all been eliminated, and Arlington County is saying no cooperation between local and federal authorities. What do you say to that?
I think banning local police from alerting ICE about terrorists or MS-13 gang members or human traffickers is the opposite of compassion. It's negligence. And these leftist politicians, they live in these ivory towers. They refuse to see the havoc that's wreaking on the communities that they're championing. And as you noted, used to be Arlington had a policy, it was kind of referred to as the trust policy that already offered a certain level of latitude to law enforcement. But now doing this, so they're saying even if you're a terrorist or pick up on drug trafficking, fentanyl that's wrecking so many communities across the country, human trafficking, even then you are barred. It's not the choice of local law enforcement's choice. It is these politicians, leftist politicians, overriding the judgment of local police on the scene saying, nope, you are barred from cooperating with our federal partners. This policy does not make a single resident in Arlington County more safe. It makes them less safe. And this is exactly the type of criminal first, victim last mindset that has infected so many of the left-wing politicians we've seen across the country.
So one of the Democratic members of the county board, Maureen Coffey, said, hey, we're not stopping the feds from doing their job. Listen to what she said.
I want to be clear. The action that we take today does not stop ICE from operating in Arlington, doesn't stop Kristi Noem from using us as the backdrop for her media stops, and it doesn't stop any future changes to immigration enforcement at the federal level. Immigration enforcement is the sole responsibility of the federal government.
With sarcasm. But if local authorities don't cooperate with federal authorities, it makes the job of federal authorities that much more difficult. I mean, look at the results that they're getting down in Florida with the 287G cooperation.
I mean, could you imagine a local politician saying that if we get a kidnapper that's picked up, we're not going to turn them over to the FBI? It's that ludicrous. And let me tell you what I have seen firsthand. I did a ride-along with federal agents last year where I saw what happened. A alleged MS-13 gang member who'd been indicted on a rape charge. A judge lets this person out on bail, and because the local sheriff refused to cooperate and notify ICE, their detainers, this person is able to walk free out of the jail back into the community where he could potentially hurt people. And I saw the resources it took 6 federal agents to try to track this MS-13 gang member, accused rapist, down. And when they finally were able to apprehend them, it was right down the street where there were a bunch of school-age children waiting to get on the bus in the morning. It's this criminal first, victim last mindset. This makes Arlington less safe, not more safe. This is grandstanding. These are individuals placing politics over the public's public safety, and it's absolutely abhorrent to see it happen.
Here's what the acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, said about all this. He said, quote, we find it extremely troubling that Arlington County leaders made the decision to prioritize politics ahead of public safety. Prohibiting local law enforcement from alerting federal authorities to the presence of an egregious hazard to their community only emboldens criminal offenders while putting people at risk. Regardless, ICE will continue to prioritize the safety of our public by arresting, detaining, and removing criminal alien offenders, even in these sanctuary jurisdictions. Do you agree with the acting ICE director that if there's no consequences for people who are in this country illegally who commit crimes in terms of immigration policy, that it just may embolden them to continue their criminal enterprise?
Well, yeah, MS-13 and TDA don't need social workers masquerading saying they're protecting the public. They need to be prosecuted. And in this case, they need to be deported out of our country. And so Arlington should be ashamed of themselves for putting violent criminals present in the country here illegally first over their own citizens, their own constituents. And I know all of these interagency task forces that we do are so much more effective when local, state, and federal partners are working together towards the same goal. And there's not another category of crime, if it's drug dealing, if it's human trafficking, if it's kidnapping, any other category of crime, any politician that says we're not going to work with our federal partners to solve fentanyl dealers or human trafficking or organized crime and gang activities, they'd be laughed out of office. It is only on this issue they've decided they'd rather protect those that are here illegally than those that are their own constituents. And it's shame on them in Arlington.
All right. Well, we'll see what the net effect of all of this is. Attorney General Miyares, good to catch up with you. Thanks for taking the.
Oh, my goodness. So, like the Truth Post, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States, posted, he said, everybody's talking about due process. How about due process in coming into the United States? So these people come into the United States illegally, but then you need due process to get them out. Does that make any sense? I don't get it. So you come in here, anyhow, any which way, cross the border, whatever, however you get in here, get in here. But then when you get in here, then it's like you need due process to get you out. Why didn't you follow the due process to get inside in the first place? Okay. Shout out to the liberals. Shout out to the liberals, ladies and gentlemen. All right, tornadoes. I hope people are safe out there, man. God, please protect these people. Godly. God dang. Jeez.
A violent and deadly tornado outbreak has killed at least 21 people across the central U.S. and left a massive trail of devastation in its path. The storms leveled homes, uprooted trees, brought down power lines across a dozen states from Michigan to Alabama. And video from hard-hit Laurel County, Kentucky, shows residents and first responders searching through piles of debris and mangled vehicles. They're looking for victims. Governor Andy Beshear says at least 14 people died in the southeastern part of the state, and he expects the number to climb. Here's how one resident described the storm's impact.
I went in the house and I looked out the side window, and when I started on the side window, it looked like all that stuff was coming from up. Instead of, you couldn't see, I couldn't see the tail or nothing, but it just lifted like it was lifting everything up. So I got in the hallway and put my hands over everybody, and it started blowing the windows out. And you talking about praying. I prayed harder than anything I could ever do.
That came after a devastating tornado hit Missouri Friday afternoon, killing at least 5. 2 other storm-related deaths were reported in another part of the state. I want to bring in now CNN correspondent Julia Vargas Jones, who is on the ground right now in hard-hit St. Louis, Missouri. Julia, what are you hearing from people there?
Well, we're hearing just how scary it was to go through that. Imagine that, Fred. Winds of up to 100 miles an hour, and this is the result, right? Entire roofs just swept out homes. We talked about down trees. We're seeing down tree after down tree, uprooted large trunks of trees. Over here, a downed power line. We already saw some crews from the utility company coming to survey this area to take a look and see what they can do. It's still pretty dangerous. I'm not going to go into this area over here. Siding from homes, parts of utilities, roofing from homes. This building right here, we did speak to a neighbor earlier saying she was here to help clean up other neighbors' homes who were even more destroyed than hers. That was a whole other story on that building there that got completely swept off. all of this debris still on the streets. We're seeing crews coming out here with big machines to start to clear it out. We're also still seeing first responders. You can probably hear the sirens still around here, surveying this area, looking for people that might still be missing. And we heard from both the mayor and from the governor at this hour. Take a listen to what they said.
We are obviously still grieving. The governor and I just got done surveying some of the hardest hit areas here. The devastation is truly tremendous.
We're putting all hands on deck to make sure that we can assist the city and local authorities as much as possible. I would echo the mayor's response, or comments, that our first responders, both in fire and police, have been incredible heroes in this moment. And this is when you really see the goodness of Missouri, when you see these men and women step up and help their friends and neighbors that they've never met, just try to restore some essential services.
And Fred, that is what we're seeing here in this residential neighborhood of St. Louis. People just picking up brooms and rakes and trying to clean up to help their friends and neighbors and their local businesses to try and get back on their feet, open their doors. There is a curfew that will be in place tonight from 9 p.m. until 6 o'clock local. And as we mentioned earlier, this storm is winding down, but another one picking up just a few states south of here in the coming days.
Right. It's still very volatile situation. Thank you so much, Julia Vargas Jones in St. Louis. And even in Chicago, take a look at this incredible time-lapse footage showing a rare dust storm covering Chicago. The National Weather Service says winds of up to 70 miles an hour blew over from dry farmlands, blowing into the Windy City. All right, St. Louis, Missouri. Take a look at this right here. What would you feel like just seeing your home, which an entire side of the home just swept away, collapsing as a result of these storms? It does look like a dollhouse, doesn't it? Well, it is the home of Joan Miller. And you can see right up at the top there, this house was hit and devastated by the storm's ravage. Joan Miller is with us now. You were in your home, Judge. Tell us about your entire experience. Did you know this, storm was coming? Were you, bracing for it? Just take me back.
Okay, Frederica. I was at the office, which is in suburban St. Louis in Olivet, and working in the afternoon, and I saw that the clouds were forming. And earlier in the day, they said the weather was going to be violently terrible. So I decided to go home and finish working from home. And I got home, I got my laptop going, and I turned on the TV, and there was nothing but just weather alerts. And after a few minutes, the electricity went out. And so my husband and I were just sitting there, and there's a big sweet gum tree in front of my house that started swaying violently. And that happens a lot when there's storms, but this was something highly unusual. So I stood up and I started backing away from the windows. And I told David, get up, get up. Get up. And he was just transfixed looking outside. And so I just backed away, and he finally got up. We were in the hallway. And as soon as we got in the hallway, all the other doors, this is on the second floor, shut. Just like in the movie Carrie, when all the doors shut in the gym. And there was a bathroom door open. We went in there, shut the door, and just seconds later, maybe 10 seconds later, we opened the bathroom door, and the whole back of the house was gone. Wow. Now, my house was built in 1912. They're triple bricks of good old St. Louis red bricks, and I never had any fear of anything happening to that house with a storm. Because of where I live and the sound structure of the house, but the entire back of the house, first floor and second floor, are gone. There was a back porch that's also gone. Wow. And the front of the house, all the windows were blown out. But like I said, the entire back of the house was gone.
I mean, that is incredible. And I mean, thank goodness for you and your husband's instinct, though, once all these doors were shutting, just that pressure that happens, just preceding a tornado sweeping into an area, that you had the instinct then to go into a bathroom, because that usually is the instruction, right? To go into a smaller, tight kind of space like a bathroom. And thank goodness you did that.
Well, really, it was the only room where the door hadn't shut, and we didn't have time to run down to the basement. That would have been, going down 2 stories. It was just, hey, this door is open. Let's jump in it. I mean, I guess we could have been in a closet, but it was just one of those things, and very scary. And the weird thing was there was no rain, no hail, just wind.
Wow. And we see just that pile of those bricks there. But that wind, obviously very damaging. So how shaken up are you and your husband? I mean, you seem so poised and at ease right now, especially given, what you've been through. And yes, I mean, your lives were spared and saved there. But how are you feeling?
I'm feeling overwhelmed. I go between being overwhelmed, shocked, teary. I'm still thinking about, my plans for this week. My Smith College reunion is next weekend. I was planning on going on Thursday and then spending some theater tickets in New York after that, and then an ABA meeting in Washington. I don't think I'll be doing any of those things. So that's what happens in life. I've got a headache right now. We could use some sleep. I think we could use some lunch. My husband only has a scratch on his knee, and so a Band-Aid has been good enough for that. I'm not hurt at all. We've cleaned up so much broken glass from the upstairs. The house is being boarded up now, and we're staying in a hotel.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am so happy, and I know you all, or your entire family, so grateful that you and your husband are fine. I mean, what a frightening experience. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from your Smith colleagues, your fellow alums, very soon. Maybe you can still get there, but I understand you've got a lot going on right now. Joan Miller-Hitt, thank you so much. Oh, and I'm so sorry that this happened to you, but I mean it. I'm so happy that you all are okay. I know it's tough to lose your home like that, though.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, we'll be house hunting.
Oh man,
I know you.
Dear Lord, this natural disasters is just wild. Back here in the South, Georgia, about last year, October, we had Hurricane Helen. It was wild. I had to take my family away for like 9 days to another city. Like the whole place was crazy. No power for like 10 days or like 8 days. I can't remember. But no light, no power, no power, no internet. It was wild. When we got back home, the whole spot was stinking. Like the fridge was gone. Like man, it was wild. So if you're out there, man, God is your strength. And that's the thing. Like, imagine you living paycheck to paycheck and things like this happen to you. Like it's hard because sometimes insurance companies do not turn up for you. Okay, so you have to have some sort of cash to take your family to a hotel, or hopefully some church nearby helps you out. I don't know, like a community shelter or something. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people are going through a lot, and then you add this on it. God damn. It is hard, bro. All right, Putin needs to end the war, first of all. But Trump is saying he wants to have a conversation with Putin on Monday morning. I'm sure he's going to air it on
just
live.
moments ago,
or maybe not. Who knows?
Posted that he is planning to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin by phone on Monday. CNN correspondent Julia Benbrook is at the White House for us today. Julia, this announcement following Trump's comments this week where he said that only he and Putin can end this war. So what is planned or expected for this phone call?
Well, President Donald Trump announced what he hopes will be a productive day of discussions on Monday. He says that he will be having a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin at 10 a.m. And then following that phone call, he plans to speak with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, as well as various members of NATO. Now, these conversations come after representatives from Ukraine and Russia had their first face-to-face talks in 3 years. They had direct talks at a lower level than expected, but they were able to agree to a prisoner swap, however, did not seem to make any significant progress when it comes to a peace deal. And that meeting took place after there was a lot of speculation on who might be attending that meeting. At one point, there were thoughts that Zelensky, Putin, and maybe even Trump could have a seat at that table. While Zelensky ended up sending his defense minister to have these conversations, he criticized Putin for not sending any real decision makers to have that conversation. Now, the U.S. has said that they don't believe that there will be a significant breakthrough on a ceasefire until Trump and Putin can have a conversation. As you mentioned, while speaking with reporters in the Middle East, Trump said this. He said, quote, "I don't believe anything is going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together." Now, the Europeans and the U.S. have been really trying to put pressure on Putin to accept a 30-day ceasefire deal. And following those direct talks that took place on Friday, Zelensky said that it is crucial that pressure be maintained on Russia. Now, again, Trump said that he hopes that these conversations will be productive and that there will be a ceasefire deal come out of it. He expects to speak on the phone with Putin first at 10 a.m. on Monday. Now, he did speak with Zelensky following those direct talks as well. So these have been ongoing conversations, but he's put a lot of pressure and a lot of anticipation on this conversation with his Russian counterpart.
All right, Julia Benbrook at the White House. Thanks so much. All right, we're also learning this morning that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is discussing Ukraine with the Vatican while he is there for Pope Leo's inaugural Mass tomorrow. With us now, Jane Harman. She's a former Democratic U.S. representative from California and a former ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congresswoman Harman, always great to see you.
Thank you, Fred.
So how much faith do you have in this scheduled phone call for Monday between Trump and Putin?
Well, President Trump is coming off a high in the Gulf states and feels very confident that he can singularly change all these conflicts. But I think a lot of skepticism is in order. Vladimir Putin has been playing Trump for a long time, and I can't see how he would be interested. I don't think he is interested in making a deal that would involve in any way compromising what he has and what he aspires to. What does he aspire to? All of Ukraine, and then Europe following that. I mean, that's the goal he's outlined for years and years and years. So he's increasing his arsenal of things to use in the war with Ukraine. A ceasefire would give him even more opportunity. He's working with China, Iran, and North Korea to get even more stuff, drones and other things. And so I don't see this. And I can imagine Trump would threaten him with secondary sanctions. That's a good thing to do. If he follows through on secondary sanctions, something Congress is interested in, that would have a big impact on Russia's economy, which is not that strong. So, I'm for that, but I don't see a deal coming out of this. I think it's a very different situation from what Trump was doing with the Arab states. It's interesting that Peggy Noonan today says Trump's foreign policy in the Middle East is hates war, loves gold. Mm-hmm. And that seemed to work out pretty well. Right. But Israel is still a problem. Iran, no deal yet. But some progress, I would say, in Syria against the Houthis, India, Pakistan. So I would give him some wins. But I think this one is going to be much tougher than he thinks. Mm-hmm.
Trump's approach, particularly in the Middle East, is much more transactional business deals, right, where the apex and central to his mission. So, as it pertains to Putin, what possibly, and I know you said you have low expectations about what could really be offered, but what would Trump be offering that would further incentivize, or that would incentivize Putin at all to, whether it be to commit to a ceasefire or completely end the war? I mean, because the president is talking that he can very confidently end it all, but what could he possibly say to Putin to change the tone and the approach that Putin has on his war in Ukraine?
Well, no sanctions, other kinds of preferences, deals for critical minerals, things of that kind to get Putin to back off some of his claims. But unless first of all, Ukraine agrees. Let's understand, Ukraine is the aggrieved party. Russia invaded a sovereign country, and there's just no controversy about that, except perhaps Donald Trump may not agree with that, but certainly the whole world agrees with that. He could offer all that, but then Putin would have to give up, or at least temporarily put aside, his aspirations to a greater Russia, make Russia great again. Even if it happens, I don't see Putin following through. I mean, if there is a deal, but there is no way to police the border that Russia agrees to and Ukraine agrees to, Russia's just going to move on into Ukraine later. He's violated every deal he's made since 1994 to respect Ukraine's sovereignty.
So what do you suppose European allies are thinking now, or what kind of hopes do they have on this phone call between a Trump and a Putin? Do they feel that that would undermine whatever progress they feel they made while they were visiting together collectively with the president of Ukraine in Kyiv just barely a week ago?
Well, I think they feel they need to be at the table. They are helping Zelensky have better cards, to talk in Trump speak. They really are. And NATO matters here because NATO is the next move after Russia moves through Ukraine. So they have skin in the game. They also are trying to do more, and they need to do more to provide aid to Ukraine. They can provide military assets, financial aid, etc., which Ukraine desperately needs. I think they're hoping that this phone call, I think followed by another call with Zelensky and maybe with them, will put something on the table that they can agree to. But I'm skeptical. I just don't see Putin that interested. And Putin's got a lot of cards. He just had a major military celebration with Xi Jinping there. I mean, Trump's now going to have one. He's trying to match it. But I wonder if he's going to have Putin and Xi Jinping at the one in the United States. I wonder how that would play politically in the United States if he even tried.
That would be interesting indeed, to say the very least. All right, Congresswoman.
I'm not recommending it.
I know you're not, but that's an interesting.
Trump has been, everybody knows Trump is a man of peace. He went to the Middle East and he got the best welcome into the Middle East. I mean, they had fighter jets escorting Air Force One into Saudi Arabia, into Qatar. It was remarkable to watch. I felt proud to be an American. So, of course, Putin sees all of this stuff and he knows, I don't want to go back and forth with a leader like Trump. Because, first of all, if you say you're going to end the war, you tell Trump you're going to end the war. You better end the war. Because if you don't, you will be isolated. And that's why he actually went to the Middle East. Most people don't know because this man is just smart. This is called The Art of the Deal. I don't know if you guys have read the book, The Art of the Deal, but I've read it like 4 times now. And it's like, you need leverage, right? Of course you need leverage. In business, you need leverage, okay? If you're trying to get a loan, you need leverage as well. So, which is your credit, okay? So your credit is your leverage to get money from the bank when you want to get a mortgage or you want to get a credit card increase or something, right? It's the same way with other countries. Same thing with trade with China. You find a leverage what do they want that you have, and that they sort of cannot do without. Okay, so now the gas prices has gone all the way down. Russia isn't making so much money anymore because, of course, Russia supplies the world 2% oil. Most people don't know that. But Russia is a big player when it comes to oil in the global market. And oil is a global trade. So no one country can determine oil price, okay, because it's a global market. It's a global trade. So with oil prices down now, Putin is ready. Of course, he's causing as much damage as he can, but he's going to kiss the ring at the end of the day. All right, China, United States. Here we go.
Welcome back, America. We're here with our friend Gordon Chang of the wonderful Gatestone Institute, fantastic institute. His book, Plan Red. Gordon Chang, I feel the president put all these tariffs in place, specifically on China more than any of the others, to get leverage. In other words, we have these countries that are ripping us off with massive tariffs, with other things that they're doing, massive subsidies of their companies, stealing our proprietary information. And the president's there and he says, how do I leverage communist China and even our allies that are doing this to our country? And being somebody who loves our country and wants to help the people of our country, says, look, I've got an idea. Other presidents have done it and it worked. Tariffs. So I'm going to put tariffs in place across the board pretty much. China, I'm going to slam the hell out of them, and then they're going to come to the table, and then we can have a meaningful discussion. That seems to have occurred, no?
Well, yeah, the president certainly gave China a lot of relief at a time which was critical for China, because this is the beginning of the Christmas season for China's export-oriented factories. And really, the mutual reduction of tariffs helps China's exporters far more than it helps ours. And, a lot of people say that the president blinked, and he certainly did. He gave China a temporary win. I think that what Trump was doing was he realized the Chinese were on a collision course with the United States and the world, and he gave them an off-ramp. He gave them 90 days to come to terms with not only us, but with everybody else. And we're going to see where we are. Now, if the president gives another delay, another pause in the tariffs, then I get really worried. But at least for the meantime, I think the president has been quite gracious. Now, I think it was a mistake, largely because it's made the Chinese arrogant, and I don't think he should have let them out of the box, but he's the president.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was looking at it quite differently than that. That is, even though it can hurt us, the supply chains, pharmaceuticals, and all the rest of it that, unfortunately, we've come to rely on with China, I think what he was doing is he was showing China, we have more power in the ability to affect your economy than you do ours. And not only that, I believe you've told me, and I've also read, that there's little pockets of unrest in communist China, with workers in different factories protesting. Some of the, I won't call them opposition media, but some of the information's getting out of China that they were having serious problem with these factories and so forth. People weren't being paid for 2 weeks. Pensioners weren't getting their pensions. So it doesn't look like a complete great victory to China for me.
Well, what happened is at a time which was critical for Beijing and for the Communist Party, Trump gave them some relief. And you're right, there are worker protests across the country because even before Trump took his second oath of office, export-oriented factories were having real problems. They were not getting orders, what was necessary to keep them in business. After the tariffs, a lot of them, in fact, went out of business. They weren't paying their workers. Workers took to the streets. And we're starting to get hints that this is affecting smaller Chinese banks because smaller Chinese loans are going bust. That means the banks don't have enough money for depositors. Depositors are getting angry, and they're taking to the streets as well. So this is an economy that is fragile. I think the Chinese economy is contracting. We can see this from all sorts of price data, especially February, March, and April. So I wouldn't have given the Chinese relief. I would have pressed the advantage. But, the president took the opposite course.
Let me ask you this. With respect to the Communist Chinese military, if they're having economic problems, does that affect their military capabilities and their payments to the military, or is that just prioritized?
it's prioritized. For some time now, the Chinese military, from all we can tell, is getting a bigger portion of central government revenues than the economy would bear. They're still able to do it because the generals and admirals form the most powerful faction in the Communist Party, but it's going to catch up with them soon because we're seeing all sorts of signs of distress. And there's a lot of commitments that Xi Jinping has made. And I don't think he can fulfill all of them. So the military, I think, is going to have problems with its budget. That's going to cause even more problems for China's leaders with the generals and admirals. So this is not a good situation for China's leader.
So they're vulnerable to future tariffs, you're telling me?
Absolutely. First of all, we're the bigger economy. China is less than 2/3 the size of ours. China is the trade surplus country. They've got everything to lose. Their economy is contracting, I believe. You just add it up. We have all the high cards. And, for President Trump to give them even more relief right now sort of gets them through a very difficult time.
You keep saying that, and I understand your perspective and so forth, but I'm not fully understanding it. In other words, our companies needed relief too, and they apparently were lining up at the door at the White House begging the president, particularly companies that produce electronics and so forth and so on, pharmaceuticals, other industries. And he had to keep that in mind too. But he made it clear, in my humble opinion, that when he put the tariffs in place, that we have the capacity to do maximum damage to what you're calling an economy that's already on its back. And so I'm not sure about blinking and giving them relief and so forth and so on. It's 90 days. 90 days in the life of a country is nothing. And so I suspect there's something more to this, which is we showed them what we're capable of. Their economy sucks. At some point, as you say, the military is going to be affected by it. And now we'll go to the negotiation table. And if we can't come up with some kind of trade agreement that is also beneficial to the United States, I'll slap those tariffs right back on them. I mean, I see that as a rational play, don't you?
Yes. And one of the other things that's happening from a broader perspective is that Trump is showing companies around the world and countries that tension between China and the United States is real and it's going to get worse, even though there is a 90-day pause on the tariffs. And I think what he's doing is he's saying to corporate boards, look, you got to get your factories out of China, because if you don't, you may end up in a situation where you'll have no goods to sell at all. So ultimately, I think this will work to our benefit as factories migrate back to the United States or to countries in our region, which would be good for us, or countries that are friendly. That's a win for the United States ultimately.
Well, that's actually a great point.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to...
Thank you for tuning into the live show. How are you guys doing? Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notification bell if you're getting any sort of information. But with that being said, James Comey, former FBI director, says 8647, and he claims he doesn't know what 86 means. Keep in mind, this is a former FBI director. Okay, even waiters and waitresses knows what 86 means, all right? Regular random high school kids know that. You could Google what 86 means, and then you could find what it means, all right? Well, a former FBI director who has, I've seen in most cases, very, very tough prosecutions of cartels, wild cases of crazy, unspeakable crimes. He's convicted those people. He knows what 86 means, but he's claiming he doesn't know what 86 means. And then he said he found the shells on the beach, 8647, and then he decided to put it on social media. After you know that this guy has had assassination attempt on himself, on his life, for what, 2-3 times? One of us killed him, and yet you put 8647, and the liberals are saying, what? Doesn't mean anything.
Joining us now is DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia
McLaughlin. Tricia, I want to get to this James Comey story with you. So he was interviewed for 70 minutes last night. His wife will also be interviewed. From the Department of Homeland Security's perspective, did James Comey call for the assassination of President Trump?
Yes, in the DHS's opinion, and Secretary Noem has said she believes that this is a call for an assassination from the former head of the FBI to a sitting president of the United States. Americans can rest assured that we are taking this incredibly seriously. I won't get ahead of Director Curran or Secretary Noem, but as you mentioned, Comey did sit down for an interview. I think it was closer to an hour and 10 minutes. And there will be consequential interviews after this with other members of his family and other people who were there.
Tricia, I want to get your take on the Supreme Court ruling yesterday to halt the deportation of a group of Venezuelan migrants under the Alien Enemies Act. Tricia, how is the administration going to fight this?
You know, this is just one battle, but we are going to win this war against the invasion of our country. 15 to 20 million people illegally entered this country in the last 4 years alone. And what we were really using this Alien Enemies Act to do was to get these vicious criminal gangs out of our country, like Tren de Aragua, which most of the people at this table and a lot of viewers will remember. How does Tren de Aragua enrich itself? By sex trafficking of young women, by trafficking drugs. These are individuals who rape, maim, and kill Americans for sport. But, you know, Alien Enemies Act is not the only authority in our toolbox. We have Title VIII, we have expedited removal, and Americans can rest assured we will be getting these individuals off of our streets.
Well, that's good news. Tricia, I want to turn to this. Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan is claiming judicial immunity and pleading not guilty after she was arrested for allegedly helping an illegal migrant evade ICE. Meanwhile, Newark, New Jersey Democrat Mayor Ras Baraka, this week, he was in court to face federal charges for storming an ICE facility last week, but now he's comparing his action to the biblical King David. Watch this.
When the congressman came to the gate and was like, Mayor, they said they're going to arrest you. That was a David moment. I could have got in the car and ran. I could have said, I'm getting out of here. Maybe they arrest me at work or my home or whatever. But I froze. Not even like actively and deliberately. My body froze. My mind and my body froze like, this is it. You're supposed to be here. Whatever they're going to do, they're going to do it.
The three Democrats who were trespassing with him are also facing possible arrest, but their party is warning DHS against it.
It's a red line. It's very clear. The so-called Homeland Security spokesperson is a joke. They know better than to go down that road. There are clear lines that they just dare not cross.
If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security.
All right, here we go.
It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on someone, we are going to have a problem.
Girl, please.
Okay, so Tricia, what's your message to Hakeem Jeffries and AOC? And are more lawmakers expected to be arrested? What do you think?
These members of Congress and this mayor crossed a line when they put hands on our law enforcement. We take the safety of our law enforcement incredibly seriously. And I understand that this mayor is seeking higher office. It looks like he wants to be governor, and he's trying to get his 15 minutes of fame, and he's trying to do it at the expense of our law enforcement agents. And we're not playing games in this administration. They stormed that facility, they broke the law, they trespassed, and then they put hands on our law enforcement. It is despicable, it's un-American, in the fact that they are protesting to get MS-13 gang members, known terrorists, child rapists, truly the worst of the worst, out of this detention facility is pretty sickening. And you juxtapose that to Secretary Noem and President Trump, who are working day in and day out to get these dangerous terrorists, gang members, and violent criminals off of American streets and off of American soil.
Thank you.
Tricia, at least 20 states are suing President Trump over threats to withhold federal funding if they refuse to follow his immigration laws, and Arlington, Virginia is now banning police from cooperating with ICE on arrests of alleged migrant gangbangers and sex traffickers.
To be clear,
immigration enforcement remains at the federal level. It is not our job. We will not do it. And that has not changed.
It does not keep us safe to be complicit in any way with the infringement upon constitutional rights that we are witnessing from our federal government on an ongoing basis.
Across the nation, we are witnessing firsthand fundamental rights being chipped away. And we cannot allow that to happen here in Arlington.
Wow. Tricia, what is the Department of Homeland Security doing about these obstructionists by local and state officials?
These politicians are playing Russian roulette with the lives of Americans. How do you get so far off of the reservation that you're doing the bidding and protection of vicious gangs like MS-13 and Tren de Aragua and kidnappers and child rapists at the expense of the safety of your own constituents? I quite frankly don't understand it. We will continue to conduct ICE enforcement operations. These politicians be damned.
Tricia, Lisa Booth again. While some are still trying to obstruct ICE, state and local law enforcement agencies across the nation are signing the 287G task force agreement to team up with ICE on immigration enforcement. It's already been a success in places like Florida with Operation Tidal Wave. They were able to arrest over 1,000 migrants last month thanks to this program. What else can you tell us about these agreements, and how much does that help you guys at the Department of Homeland Security?
The 287G program, Lisa, has been incredibly successful at its very early stages. We already have 562 agreements to deputize local and state law enforcement to carry out immigration actions throughout the country. So as you were mentioning, Operation Tidal Wave, about 1,100 arrests, incredibly successful to get these vicious criminals off of our streets. And I think that's just a preview of what's to come. We just had a large-scale operation in Massachusetts and Houston as well, and 287G was also deployed there. So I think Americans will be happy to see our state, local, and federal law enforcement are really partnering to carry out the president's agenda, which is to get violent criminals off of American streets.
Exactly. So what do you expect parents of Laken Riley, what do you want them to say when they hear and see the people they voted for fighting for criminals to stay in the United States? Matter of fact, some of these senators are actually traveling to these countries to bring back people. And you have homeless veterans on the street, hungry, begging for $1 to eat. And you're traveling to other countries to bring people back. Great work, liberals.
Has pitched a reality show where illegals compete for U.S. citizenship. The department has already made an impression on social media with it. Let's watch this.
Uh-oh. Yeah, we're going home.
You know, Tricia, we just discussed all of the good work the Department of Homeland Security is doing, making America safer as a result of what you guys are doing. Why a reality show? I mean, doesn't that take away from all of the good work?
Lisa, I think that there's a lot of misreporting out there, and I think, unfortunately, some of it's intentional. We get pitched hundreds of shows, docuseries, scripted series about all of DHS's different component offices, from CBP to ICE to TSA to FEMA to Secret Service to U.S. Coast Guard, and we review those, but there's absolutely no reality show in the works whatsoever. Again, this is just a pitch that came to us. Secretary Noem isn't even aware of that pitch. So anyone who's trying to put out that there's some reality TV show is just not telling the truth.
Well, I'm glad you could clarify that, and that's important. I also want to get you this before we go. You had mentioned that the Department of Homeland Security does, in fact, see James Comey's social media post as a threat to the president, an attempted assassination, a threat to the president. So what will the consequences be for him? I'm
going to leave that to the Department of Justice, but I can tell you we are taking this incredibly incredibly seriously. And like I said, last night is not going to be the last interview for this situation at hand.
All right, Tricia, thanks so much for joining us. We had a lot of questions for you. Appreciate you making the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. God bless you. And with that being said, instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never, ever give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in Almighty God, okay? And fathers, take care of your kids. I know, okay? Life is hard. We got to take responsibilities for the things that you bring into this world. So please, fathers, take care of your kids. Okay, mothers have been doing a lot for years, so it's time for fathers to step up. And shout out to the military. God bless you for protecting land. And shout out to the veterans. Thank you for your service. God is great. God is great. Life is hard, but keep going. Never stop. Never ever stop going. Never ever give up. Never throw in the towel. Just keep going. You never know. You might see the light at the end of the tunnel. And even if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, it don't matter, man. Just keep fighting. Because what sort of life would you want to live? Do you want to just sit down and say, you know what? Woe unto me. I am a victim. I can't do nothing because America isn't for me. Or do you want to say, you know what? I am blessed. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to fight for my dreams. I'm going to fight for the things that I want. And I believe in myself. I would rather take the route that says I believe in myself. Okay, so I implore you to take that route as well. Also, unity is what I support, is what I preach. I don't, just because I am a conservative doesn't mean that I wouldn't have a conversation with a liberal. Okay, I don't hate you because you didn't vote for Trump. Just because I wouldn't ever vote for Kamala or Joe Biden doesn't mean that I wish them bad or I wish them dead. No, okay? It's not that serious, okay? Y'all be taking this shit too serious. You, uh, why did they miss the that person shouldn't have missed in Pennsylvania? What are you doing? This is a human being. You wish a human being to die? Who are you? God? God damn. All right. It is your boy Genesis, and God bless you guys, man. God is the greatest. I will be back. Shout out to C. Shelley. God bless you. That is the moderator for tonight. Shout out to Derek. Shout out to Sergeant. Shout out to everybody for tuning in. God bless you. And Mr. Booski is probably not here. Shout out to Luke, Ellie, some of our members. Also, membership is $4.99. You can go on the channel and join the membership, support the channel. And God bless you. We will be back when it's bright outside, okay? Because it's currently 4:29 a.m. And of course, today is the 18th of May 2025. God bless you. Your boy Genesis is signing out.